A broad overview of sociolinguistics presentation by Simon Dooley. Sociolinguistics is a subdiscipline of linguistics that focuses on all aspects of society and how that affects language use. Some of the aspects covered within sociolinguistics include dialect, sociolect, gender, and power. Sociolinguistics, a history. 1876 sees German linguist George Wencker create the first linguistic atlas of dialects within a geographical area, in Wencker's case, Germany. In 1905, in part thanks to Wencker's work, Joseph Wright produces the first English dialect dictionary. The work is so large it spans 6 volumes. The term sociolinguistics as an academic area of study can be traced back to 1949, to a researcher named Haver Curry and a paper he produced called A Projection of Sociolinguistics. Other researchers have argued that the term was first coined by T.C. Hudson, later corrected to Hodson, in an article called Sociolinguistics in India. However, Curry argues that the term was only used in the title of what Curry deems as an article and not a paper, and that the term does not appear in the main body of the text. He deems that the first use of sociolinguistics as an academic practice was in his own paper that was published in 1952. This claim was refuted in 2004 by Shailendra Mohan, who again cites Hodson in her paper titled Development of Sociolinguistics at the Deccan College. Linguist Joseph Gumpers develops further tools for sociolinguistic study in the 1950s, including code switching and contextualization. Noam Chomsky publishes Syntactic Structures in 1957. Chomsky's pioneering research into language and interaction continued to allow the field of sociolinguistics to evolve. In 1964, Del Hymes combined his love for anthropology and language and created a project that culminated in Language in Culture and Society, a reader in linguistics and anthropology, a seminal work that resulted in the study of comparative ethnographic language use, creating the subdiscipline of linguistic anthropology. During the 1960s, William Labov founded variationist linguistics, a branch of sociolinguistics that examines the relationship between language and social factors, including gender and class. Basil Bernstein's contribution to sociolinguistics is in the form of language codes. Throughout the 1970s, Bernstein produced 3 books entitled Class, Codes and Control, volumes 1 through 3. Bernstein proposed that there was a link between language use and the language codes contained within a specific class or social group. He observed that these codes were interchangeable depending on the situation the speakers found themselves. He discovered that speakers would adapt their language and tone within each formal and informal situation. In 1978, Peter Trudgill publishes Sociolinguistics, an Introduction to Language and Society, a seminal work in which he introduces the ideas that social class, gender, and ethnicity are also important factors in understanding how language is used. Sociolinguistics, a definition. Sociolinguistics is the study of the social implications of language and how that affects language delivery, interpretation, and reception. The main areas of study within this subdiscipline include social status, class, geographical location, bilingualism, and power. Sociolinguists examine language acquisition and variation based on gender, age, sex, ethnicity, relationship, occupation, and other factors based around society. Sociolinguistics borrows heavily from other disciplines such as anthropology and psychology, and not all linguists agree to the definition of this subdiscipline. Trudgill takes the view that sociolinguistics is the relationship between language and society. However, Richard Hudson argued that sociolinguistics is the study of how language is used within society. Descriptivism versus prescriptivism. Dating back to 1759, when William Cobbett, an English journalist, lambasted American lexicographer and author of Webster's Dictionary for his inaccurate grammar and bad spelling, and went as far as calling him an illiterate booby. More recently, Stephen Fry has described language as being personal and fluid. Descriptivism linguists, such as Trudgill, argue that language is an evolving construct and that social factors, geographical location, dialects, and sociolects should govern how language evolves and how it is used. Prescriptivism linguists, such as Lynn Truss, believe that the English language should be preserved and that language should shape society. Truss humorously attacks the misuse of punctuation and the apostrophe in her BBC4 radio show, Cutting a Dash. She has also published 2 popular books on the subject. Stephen Fry eloquently describes prescription linguists as being too farting busy sneering at a greengrocer's less than perfect use of the apostrophe. Well, sod them to Hades. Sociolinguistic factors, dialects, accents, and sociolects. As mentioned in the previous slide, sociolinguists like Trudgill believe that geographical location and social factors play a large role in the way language is used and formed. Sociolects are important because they identify social groups and highlight differences such as class, gender, sex, religion, relationship, and ethnicity. Idiolects are specific language habits and are individual to the person using them. An example might be a young child preferring to call Santa Claus Santy Claus. It's specific to that child's idiolect. Linguist Gretchen McCulloch's book, Because Internet Understanding How Language is Changing, explains that with the birth of the internet, language is changing in a real-time setting, whereas before it would take years, sometimes decades, for language variation to be observed. It is now almost instant. Sociolects can be observed as they are happening. She believes this is what is causing such consternation for prescription linguists. Dialects are important factors for identifying a particular geographical social group. They highlight particular grammar, word choices, and syntax structure of a speaker. The most well-known dialect is received pronunciation, or RP, that is mostly associated with southern England. Accents are region-specific, and with the exception of sign language users, we all speak with an accent. Accents also play an important role with personal and social identity, and can identify a person's sexuality, religion, and their class. Serial killer Peter Sutcliffe was first identified through his accent by linguists Stanley Ellis and Jack Windsor Lewis, who were able to pinpoint the exact area of Sunderland Sutcliffe was from. Had the lead investigating officer taken the linguist seriously, Sutcliffe may have been caught earlier. The foot-strut divide. The foot-strut divide is a phonological split dividing northern and southern England. It is based on the way speakers pronounce vowels. John Wells, a professor of phonetics at the University College of London, first proposed the idea of a divide in his book series Accents of England. The theory showed that England can be divided into 2 clear sections, the north and the south. The data collected demonstrated a defined line in the way people pronounced foot with cut. 82% of speakers in the North were able to rhyme foot with cut, as were 48% of the Midlands, whereas only 6% of Southern speakers were able to make the two words rhyme. The website Our Dialects has conducted further research and discovered that the foot-strut divide may have moved further north. This could indicate the movement of Southerners in a bid to find cheaper accommodation outside of London and then commute to work. This could also be a response to the UK cost of living crisis and the previous austerity measures. Corpus linguistics. Corpus or corpora within sociolinguistics is important to aid the collection and analysis of quantitative and qualitative data. This allows sociolinguists to understand the differences between speech patterns in differing populations. This includes but isn't limited to demographic variation, cross-cultural language analysis, and the study of transcripts. A recent study examined the discourse of refugees and asylum seekers using corpus linguistics and sociolinguistics, highlighting the importance of corpora within the field to analyse, understand, and interpret large volumes of data. Critical discourse analysis. Critical discourse analysis allows sociolinguists to study discourse taking into consideration social context. It can identify factors such as class, relationship, sex, gender, and ethnicity. Identifying these factors can help sociolinguists understand factors such as power relations, identity, and social interactions. The use of critical discourse analysis gives an explanation of the role of discourse and the way in which it shapes society and effects change. Linguistic landscape. Linguistic or semiotic landscape is the study of visible signs in a public space. It studies the language displayed through signage, billboards, electronic advertising, graffiti, and cyberspace. One of the main aims of the study is to analyse why signs and advertisements are placed where they are, and to analyse the specific language that is used. This highlights the careful language choices employed by the advertiser, political parties, and social media broadcasters, to name a few. It argues that nothing is there by chance. However, it can also highlight a person's social interactions, their sexuality or gender, and their political affiliations. The interview. The sociolinguistic interview is the most basic form of data collection. It can include recording speech patterns, conversations, and formal interviews. Laboff describes the technique as a well-developed strategy that has undergone rigorous procedure. Laboff also states that the interview technique is a series of hierarchically structured questions, such as surveys, questionnaires, and polls. Ethnographic communication. In 1964, anthropologist and linguist Del Hymes proposed that ethnolinguistics, sociolinguistics, and psycholinguistics were not adequate enough on their own to take into consideration the way in which language is observed in situational contexts within individual ethnic groups. He postulated that a new form of academic study was the only way in which to observe patterns that were individual to the speech activities of the speaker. Hymes also noted that context had to be considered to give the linguist a frame of reference for them to extract the abstract from the patterning of speech. Hymes named this approach ethnographic communication. Sociolinguistics, a broad overview. The conclusion. Sociolinguistics has evolved from the study of sociology of language into its own academic linguistic subdiscipline. The study of language and its impact on society requires sociolinguists to employ other subdisciplines, such as social anthropology, ethnography, critical discourse analysis, and corpus linguistics, to name a few. Trudgill and Laboff are largely recognized as the pioneers of sociolinguistic research, but modern researchers such as Holmes are pioneering the study of language landscapes and keeping sociolinguistics important to understanding language and society. Sociolinguistics has also been at the forefront of the current COVID-19 inquiry, part of which is investigating the way the government used language to manipulate the public into compliance, all the while they were enjoying parties and not following their own guidance. Sociolinguistics continues to evolve alongside societal shifts and new discourse framing events, and it will continue to analyse the effects language has on society. Thank you for listening.